A very warm welcome to week 5, where we're considering today the marketing mix. And a key part of the marketing mix is our promotion, which includes communication. So we're going to focus on that today. So, in terms of what we're going to cover in this week's lecture, we're going to start off by recapping segmentation and targeting and positioning, which then flows through to our key marketing decisions around our marketing mix. We're going to consider the different elements of the marketing mix and the decisions that need to be made and really try and understand those from the strategic perspective of the organisations you're looking at. And then we're going to look in more depth at marketing communications. We're going to conclude today's session and the new marketing contents of the module by considering what needs to be measured in terms of the marketing mix. So that comes full circle from our strategic marketing process and gives us a sense of what metrics we might be capturing to inform our decisions going forward. So to recap, where we came in week 3, we considered how we group together potential customers, what criteria we might use. Are these demographic? Are they behavioural? Are they attitudes? Are they job types, where people live? We've got all sorts of aspects that we can use to build a profile of our different segments. Once we've chosen our different segments or we've identified them, we then choose one or choose multiple ones, but these are our target audiences. So these are the people that we're really interested in attracting. And in week 3, we considered making sure that this was sufficient in terms of the numbers, that they've got the capacity to buy, and that we could reach them as well. So when we've got that, we've got our target audience stroke audiences in mind, we then need to develop our positioning. So we need to be really attractive to them. Now, we considered in week 3 how we do that in terms of perceptual maps, so how we create a perception in their minds different to our competitors. We considered last week how we're going to do that through our value proposition and how our brand plays a key part in that value proposition. And this week we continue that great work by looking at how we design a marketing mix to appeal to them and how we ensure our communications resonate with them as well. So I wanted to recap this because I think it's really important that we address the marketing mix with our target customer in mind. So the marketing mix was created in 1984 and started off the original marketing mix with 4 Ps. And these are 4 decisions that organisations make when it comes to their marketing. So we need to decide what we're going to sell, our product, how much we're selling it for, our price, where we're selling it, our place, and how we're going to promote it, and so that people know about it, our promotion. So all very straightforward, but actually there are a number of aspects to each of these decisions, which we're going to look at now. So a product, it's very rare that a product is purely a physical product. It tends to have some service attributes as well, in terms of the customer service that's delivered around it. So it's really key that we understand our target customers and identify what they want to buy, and we create that in our product. So we can do this from a digital perspective. If we're looking at a brick and click sort of entity, we'll be considering the product from an online perspective as well. So actually, how can people engage with it? Is it more appropriate to sell it online? And we're looking at that value proposition, going back to the exchange, what's in it for them and what are they giving up in exchange. But the key part of what's in it for them, the customer, is that product. Is it kept up to date? Is it a cash cow, so it's in a slow growth market, but it's something that really appeals to our audience? Or is it a star? Is it evolving quickly? And do we need to evolve with it? So it's really important that we keep up to date in terms of our product and making sure that our product is something that's fit for the marketplace and that people want. So in terms of what a product can be, it can be so many different things. It could be an idea, so it could be just a concept that we're selling initially and testing a market. It could be an actual physical, tangible product. It could be completely intangible, so it's a service in terms of what you're getting now and how I'm delivering it. It's a service. Or it could be a combination of both. So we could go for have some book that we're buying, an academic book, and then it also supporting the book, there are some online, there is some service element in terms of some instruction that comes with it. Okay, so the product needs to satisfy and, if possible, exceed our customers' needs. And that's through the things that we can touch, those tangible elements, the way it looks, the way it's available, the way it performs, the way it's priced, all forms into part of the products, the tangible things, although we know price is a separate element of the marketing mix. And then we've got the intangible elements. We have the image it creates. We have this sense of self as well. So there's an idea when we're buying things that we've got a concept of self and we like what we buy to match how we feel we are as individuals and to align with our values. We're looking at the value it adds to our lives, and we're looking at the perception it gives. So we may find, if we're buying something from a discount retailer such as Poundland, in terms of it sort of might be a slightly embarrassing purchase. We don't want to see people to see us buying it, or it's a value purchase because we know we feel like we're savvy customers. So some of this is around logical, so rational cognitive elements, or emotional elements, so intangible elements. And actually a product combines all of these. It's the functional elements, what it can do, it's the physical elements, so it's how we touch and interact with it, and it's what it means in terms of the symbolic elements as well. So it can be offered to the market for us to see it, to hopefully consume and engage with it, to acquire it, to use it. So it's any of those things. Another way of looking at products, we can look at it in a number of different levels. Here is an example with 3 levels. It can go up to 5 levels actually, so you can look at an extended version of the product levels. So the core benefit, that's why I'm actually buying something. So if I'm buying a drill, I am buying the ability to make a hole in my wall. Okay, the embodied products, so that's the physical good or delivered service to provide that hole, is I'm buying a light but powerful drill which I can hold easily, and it's got wireless, so it recharges and I don't need to be connected to the wall to use it. But that's all part of the embodied products, the actual tangible thing that I'm buying. The augmented product, that's the added value that I'm getting. So I've never bought a drill before, so I'm able to go onto YouTube and they do suggestion videos on what I need to do to set it up, how I recharge it, how I can use it for creating different types of holes on different types of walls, how I can use the different drill bits. And there's a support line as well if I've got any struggles with online real-time support. So that's a simple way of looking at the product. But I think it's quite important because you actually know what market you're in then. In terms of the core benefit or service, if we are a sandwich shop and we are, or if we're a sandwich manufacturer, the core benefit or service is the ability to satisfy hunger. Okay, that's what someone's buying from us. In which case, our competition is quite wide. They could buy sushi. They could make something at home themselves. They could go, if it was a sandwich shop, they could go to a supermarket. They could go and eat out in a restaurant. So we've got a number of different options, and that gives us a good feeling as to the scope of our, whether they're substitutes or whether they're direct competition. So everything that I'm talking about links to each other when we're talking about marketing, because it's all about understanding the marketplace, which is supported by our use of data and our analytics. Price it's a really powerful decision to make, and the reason being it's got a psychological impact on our perception of worth. So in other words, what do we think when we buy something? If it's cheap, we'll tend to devalue it. If it's expensive, we can tend to have very high expectations and we're really invested in our purchase. So actually we've got to understand how much are people willing to pay for something. So we may discount to encourage trial. We may put the price up to encourage people to think that it's worth even more, because there's an associated level of trust that comes with price. And from a digital point of view, we're able to make price changes very quickly. We can read from other websites what they're charging. We can have programs that compute that, and then we can change our pricing accordingly. So we might have some elements where we're trying to create a level of loyalty in our pricing. So Tesco's supermarket have a general price and then they have a club card price. And a club card is actually a loyalty card where you're giving your data to the company because you're telling them which purchases you're making, and in exchange they are giving you discounts and they're giving you tailored offers as well. So we may have this sort of process that's going in sort of that's happening. The reason why pricing is so important is because it's the only part of the marketing mix that generates revenue. All the rest create cost. And that's really important because in your assessments, you're looking at financial performance as well, particularly in assessment 2. So pricing, we've got to get that right to maximise our revenues and maximise our profits. So it determines how much an organisation makes in terms of profit and income for each product they sell and different marketplaces. So we could have very different price points for different markets. So if we are a manufacturer, we may sell directly to the consumer market, in which case we'll sell at quite a high price. We may sell through distributors, which we give a discounted price, or we may sell wholesale in huge volumes, in which case our pricing may be half of what we charge our consumers, and yet we're still making money on it, but the volumes are so different, and we have to make sure our channels are very different so people don't see the different levels of pricing and lose trust with us and confidence. So it's exceptionally important to get pricing right from our business point of view and our financial point of view. And it can give us a competitive edge as well. So actually, if we're selling cheap, fast and good, so the likes of Amazon, potentially the likes of the discounter supermarkets as well, they're stripping out certain elements of the service delivery to keep the cost down, which they're passing on to the customer to give themselves a price advantage. Now, a price advantage could also come from an inflated price. So it could come from charging a premium price, and this is where we surrogate price and quality. So in other words, we think that a product has a superior level of quality because it's more expensive than the competition. It has to work with the other elements of the marketing mix. So in other words, it has to be sort of consistent in terms of if we're charging a lot, we need our promotions to be high end. So Rolex won't necessarily do television advertising, but would sponsor the Grand Prix because that's seen as for the more discerning customers, those with a higher income and an interest in physically going to the Grand Prix and seeing all the signage that's around that's sponsored by Rolex. And actually, the branding is very simple, very elegant, very sophisticated, and that ties in with their price point. The product, handcrafted, again, a very, very superior product, ties in with the price point. So we see there's a high level of consistency here. And actually, our value proposition, what we're offering, where we're positioned, will determine or should determine how we price it. So here we've got an example. We're going to the airport. You're going back home potentially, and you're in an airport where they're selling in euros. Okay, so we've got two different discounts, and I'd like you to look at the image and the two prices. So we've got the original price and the discounted price. Just have a glance through them and see, without computing in your mind, but just have a think about which you feel is the better discount. Okay, what people tend to think we make shortcuts when it comes to pricing in our mind. So we need to consider when we're pricing different price points that people will consider. So pair A, what we're considering is it's from the 70s to the 60s, whereas pair B was in the 80s and it's through to the 60s. Therefore, the majority of people think pair B is a bigger discount because it's from the 80s to the 60s, where in actual fact pair A has the larger level of discount. So it's quite interesting when we're looking at pricing, the psychological impact of pricing and the shortcuts your consumers will make when it comes to pricing and setting prices. So when we're thinking about offers, we need to consider how to make them look best. So it's a marketing job in terms of the promotion that we're doing around the offers. So when it comes to different price strategies that we've got, there are a number of ways in which we can choose our pricing. So the first option, cost plus, is where we work out how much it's going to cost us to create and manufacture and deliver on our product. And then we add in maybe a level, well, not maybe, but say 20%, for example, profit. So it costs us 80 pence to make a product. We're going to put 20% of 20p profit on and sell it for £1. Okay, so that involves actually truly understanding the cost of the product. Okay, so that's good from a manufacturer point of view, from a supplier, but not necessarily very clever from a psychological point of view and not very customer focused potentially. Not, it isn't, because you're pushing your price out. Differential pricing is where we look at setting different prices in different markets. So a good example of this would be Tesco's. So Tesco's supermarket will charge one level of pricing for all their products in their Coventry Rico store. So this is a large superstore on the just outside the city centre, which people drive to. So therefore, the cost there would be quite a low cost compared to a Tesco's Metro store, so small, limited lines in terms of what they can sell, very high rent on London Bridge with a huge footfall. So they will charge significantly more for the same products because they can actually, and because of the costs actually are different as well. But it's almost like what you can get away with. The same thing here would be Ben & Jerry's ice cream. Ben & Jerry's ice cream at the cinema will be an inflated, quite a high price for a small quantity, and at a budget supermarket it would be a much bigger quantity for a smaller price. So we're setting different prices according to the use and the markets that we're selling through. So that's through our different places, if you like. Penetration pricing. This is where we go in inexpensive, so we go in cheap to get people to try it and use it. The newspaper did this in the UK. They initially launched, so they were competing. They were trying to create a new market space. So they got a broadsheet newspaper with very high quality news, however, in a tabloid format. So almost similar quality to the Times, the Guardian, that sort of thing. It's from the Independent, so it's the same quality as the Independent. However, the format was the same as the Sun or the Daily Mail or the Mirror. So what they wanted to do was get people to swap from the Times to the Eye. So the way they did it was they initially charged 20 pence an issue, and it went up to 30 pence at the weekend. And what they did was they thought if they do that, then people could buy the Times for £1 or whatever it might be, and then they could also buy the Eye. So they could buy it in addition and then try it, see if they liked it, or if they were really brave, the people might say, do you know what, I'm not going to bother with the Times, I'll just buy the Eye. So they pay their 20 pence and they buy the Eye. So the reason you do that is to try and encourage trial, because you're reducing risk by lowering your cost. And then the Eye went and increased their price by a whole 50%, so it was like 30 pence a day instead of 20 pence a day. But they did that after it got a level of traction. In other words, people were using and reading the Eye. Price skimming is where we actually charge a premium price, and the reason we do that, and we do it initially, so things like Apple products will be at a premium price initially because they have a good enough reputation for people to want to trial them early on, and these people wanting to trial them are happy to pay premium to be one of the first users, and then over time they will reduce their price. But what's really clever for price skimming is that it allows them to recover some of their cost of research and development. Prestige is luxury. So prestige is our Rolex brands, our Gucci clothes, our genuine prestige premium brands. And it allows them to charge a premium price Interestingly, because they don't sell the same volume as mass market, their marketing budget is quite limited and they still need to be very smart with how they use their marketing budget. But because they've got a smaller client base and they know them better and they can build up intelligence on them, their marketing activities might be more direct marketing. So they're tailored to the individual. So they've got that customization rather than a scattergun approach where it's much broader in terms of television advertising. And then a competitor approach is one where if we're in a market which is highly competitive, supermarkets again, we are reading their prices all the time. We're scanning them in with our software and we're then pitching our own prices accordingly. There's a trend in pricing called dynamic pricing where the price levels are going to be almost different every day according to how much they're costing from suppliers, according to competitor-based marketing, competitor-based pricing. So we're going to see this more and more where prices almost seem quite inconsistent. So we can't go for a weekly shop and know exactly what it's going to cost us because the prices will have changed week in, week out. Place. Okay, so location, location, location. So a shop in the wrong place will decrease footfall and means fewer sales. And there's one of the highest, there is an electronic shop, trying to think what the name of it is, and it's on London Bridge, and their footfall is just phenomenal. The amount of money that they make is very, very high because they're in the right place for what they do and the high-end offerings that they've got. And actually, their sales per sort of square foot or square meter of they're performing very, very well, even though the cost of rent is very high. I think it's Richer Sounds is the company, but basically it's all about being in the right place. However, from a digital point of view, how are you in the right place? You've got to be found, and you might be found by being linked to other websites. You need to ensure that reviews are quite high as well, so you need to be optimized in order to be found. And even there was a restaurant that opened near where I live, and the feedback, it was opened by someone who'd won the lottery. So they'd got a lot of money to invest in this restaurant, and it is just absolutely phenomenal. It looks stunning. Um, the critics said, wonderful, absolutely wonderful food, wonderful ambience, really well thought through. It will never work, they said, because it's in a small village in Warwickshire. Okay. It has worked, and it's worked because people have been prepared to seek it out and find it. It's had such good reviews that people are actively finding it. This comes back to the exchange. Actually, part of the cost of that, it is a fabulous experience, fabulous customer service, wonderful food, great menu selection, a really tailored experience. In exchange, I don't just pay a premium price. In addition, I'm prepared to travel out of my way for it. So that just goes to show, in terms of accessibility, your place does not have to be readily accessible, but people have got to want it enough to be prepared to go out of their way to find it. So other things on place. Place can be substituted with distribution because it's making sure everything is available when people need it at a time they need it to make sure that the logistics, the operations work really well. So we need to make sure we've got the optimum number of products and services, everything available to our maximum number of our target customer, just to make sure if people want it there and then we can deliver. Because if we can deliver, we're going to maximise our sales, which will maximise our revenue, which will maximise our profit. So therefore, distribution is a key part or place of our marketing mix. I used to like a brand that's no longer in the UK that was called Austin Reed, and it had a number of Queen's warrants. It's a very nice tailored suit brand. Okay. And one thing they really let down on so they had a premium price, so suits were likely to be say £300. And then on the delivery front, if you bought them online, you never knew when they were going to arrive. They had no tracking facility. I remember buying a coat that went missing and it was starting to snow, and it was a really big winter coat that I needed. And I had no idea where it was, when it was going to get there. They had to send another one out. So the place and distribution, just like the price, must match our market position. We need it to be consistent because we need to make sure that we are delivering on those expectations. So we need to make sure we've got a consistency in service. So I think this is quite interesting now because suppliers, or so when companies are selling things, they've not just got the place in terms of how they get it to you, they also need to ensure that they can get it returned easily as well. So this ability to provide more than just a basic product delivery service. So as we get more and more items delivered to our homes at a timescale when we know when they're going to arrive, we just need to ensure that we've also got the ability to have them collected and returned, because this whole operations is about the distribution, but distribution isn't just one way. That's what I'm saying. It's also now about connecting it to that returns process. So something quite interesting on this, we're talking about here, another consideration: how many ways are there of actually distributing products and services to customers? And I think what's quite interesting here is there are so many different ways. We consider it with physical products in a simplified way. So we've got a product, we buy it online, we get it delivered to our door. Perfect. However, there are other things that we can consider. There are vending machines. So we can actually buy items and pick them from a vending machine. That could be simple things. It used to be the likes of chocolate, sweets, things like that you'd expect to see at a leisure centre. But now we have vending machines with full grocery offerings. We have vending machines now that we can scan what we want to buy and make it a home delivery order. And then when we get home from our commute, so we're in the city centre, in the train station, about to go home, and there are walls in a whole wall which is a vending machine. And in effect, we're scanning what we want from our home delivery. We then place the order, and when we get home, our delivery comes to us. Another idea of a vending machine, or another concept that I heard that was quite an unusual concept, was a business to business application, where actually what they had was, it was almost more of a locker than a vending machine, but they had access to spare parts. And actually, by putting in a certain code, they were able to then access this part of the locker facility for the spare part, but then it invoiced the company for having that spare part. So the supplier kept their stock on site, ready for the company to use it as and when. And then with this sort of vending machine process, they were then able to invoice for those items. So it's another way of making our items available. Other things that we could have as well are things like physical, sort of where we're buying it online, but we've printed it out ourselves. We've got obviously digital downloads. We have what they call drones that could deliver items to us. So there are so many different ways of getting our items to us. One company that's done very well on this is Zara, in terms of how they've sorted out their distribution to be really effective, to innovate through their sort of European stores to get the products to the stores in line with when the customers want them, in line of changing trends and needs. So distribution and place can give you a massive advantage in terms of your operations. So now let's move on to how we're going to promote it. So how are people going to find out about what we're doing? So most people tend to get confused marketing with promotion. They think marketing is about selling, but actually it's more about the relationships that we've got with the brand, and the communications we do around it is really important. So we can categorize this. So we've got above the line, which is almost like the sort of bits that we pay for, the advertising, TV, radio, social media could be included in this. Display advertising that we're seeing, so the big boards that we're seeing at our bus stops and on our roads. Below the line is more tailored. So this is where it's more specific based to us. So if we're searching something, we're finding it. We're getting an email based on our preferences. So this is more between sort of, this will mean more to us because it's based on some knowledge and intelligence, okay, based on our needs and our wants. And then through the line is both of those. So we're combining, we're doing some television advertising, some direct email marketing to our previous customers. So in terms of the promotional mix, we've got 5 different elements that we can choose from. So advertising is where we're paying for it. So we're paying for it and we can control it. So we can have a billboard advert in a key spot in London that we know we're going to get a massive footfall. So it could be directly opposite a campus, for example, where we're going to, and our target audience are 19 to 23-year-olds who are studying full time. So that's absolutely perfect. So across the road, they'll see our large sort of advert on the billboard, and we do it in a way that's quite impactful and it actually builds knowledge of what we're doing. Sales, so the benefit of that is lots of numbers see it. However, it has to be fairly generic because we can't keep changing it unless it's a rotating one, in which case we might change it. We might have different ones in the day, and then at night time, if we've got part-time learners who potentially work full time, we might have a slightly different advert for them. That would be very smart. And we'll find out now advertising, or a trend that's happening, is advertising is becoming increasingly tailored through digital channels. And in Birmingham, they've got, in Birmingham train station, they can actually see, there's like an eye, they can see if it's a male or female looking at an advert, and they will change the advert accordingly. And that's quite rudimentary, it doesn't always work, but we're going to end up with more and more tailored communications to us. Sales promotion, it's got the word promotion, but actually all that is a price discount. So buy now and you'll get 3 years free warranty, or you'll get 3 months extra subscription. Whatever it is, it's a call to action to get us to act now to stimulate sales. Direct marketing is where we're actually talking directly, we're understanding our audience and we're creating some sort of connection with them that is very much based on their needs, preferences, wants, history. Personal selling is about people, so it's intelligent salespeople who are listening as well as talking, and it's about really an information exchange that ensures that people can get exactly what they want. Apple Genius is an example of that. Public relations, this is where we're using a broader level of communication. So it could be advertorial, for example. So we see it maybe in newspapers, online content. It has been created by the organisation, but it's been created and then is used in different ways. So it's distributed to the newspapers and they can use the article if they want. And so they can change it. So that has quite a low level of control, but quite a high level of trust from consumers, because it doesn't feel like the direct source is the company, unlike advertising. And we're going to look in this session more about communication theory, because that builds on our knowledge of the promotional mix. But before we do that, I would like to introduce you to something called the 4 C's. So we've had the 4 P's, so what are the 4 C's? Well, they have a different emphasis, and they're about relationships rather than about, so they're looking at the marketing mix that we've seen, but they're based on the perception from the customer, so they're more customer focused. So instead of products or services, we've got customer needs and wants. Instead of price, we're considering the cost to the customer. Instead of place, we're ensuring it's convenient. And instead of promotion, we're talking about communication. I really like this as an evolution. I think it's very in line with the way that we're moving in terms of relationship-based marketing rather than push-type marketing. Sorry about this. So we've looked at the original marketing mix. That was designed when we sold a lot of product, so pure products. However, now products do not tend to stand alone. They come with a level of customer service, or we're a service economy too, so we sell pure services. So the marketing mix was expanded in order to cover off the other things that are needed and the other strategic marketing decisions for a service. So a service in its purest form is seen as something we can't touch. So we could have consumer services such as the education you're consuming. We could have leisure where we're going to the cinema. Or there could be business services where it could be an intelligence, so market research, which you may go into after this course, for example. So most products have some level of service, but we need to consider product, price, place, promotion. There's got to be some things missing here that are key decisions for our services. And these things are as follows. We've got three more. So what we need to do is we need to consider the people. So if it's a pure service, it will be delivered by people, and actually it will be co-created. So a service is created with the person that consumes it. So we need to make sure that people are available. They've got the skills, they've got the personal qualities, and they are on brand. So again, our Apple Genius is a perfect example of the people in delivering that technical service. The process. So to deliver a service, to have a consistent service, McDonald's, which is a product, but it's based on a service and operation, we need to ensure that the process is really slick. When we're buying something, that it's really user friendly in the way that we're doing it, and understand how we're capturing and managing that information to inform our information decision making systems. And we need it to be standardised because otherwise we're promoting something, but it may be inconsistent, which could lead to a lot of damage for our reputation. And then the final thing, if it's a pure service in particular, we need to give some tangible evidence, so some physical evidence. So we're focusing here on the things that we can touch and feel. So if we're getting a service, are we posting something too? Is there a degree certificate at the end of it? Is there even things like the website is considered to be physical evidence? Our logos, our literature, even if we're downloading them as PDFs. The way we feel when we go into the office or are on campus, how does that look and feel? How does that support your impression of the service? So it really broadens our perspective by considering the people, the process, and the physical evidence, and gives us a much broader perspective on the marketing decisions we should make if we've got a service element or if we are a pure service. So, a good way to look at sort of our promotions is to broaden it up. Remember what I was saying about the relationship marketing and the 4 C's? Promotion turned into communication. So in this section of the lecture, we're going to look at communications. And marketing communications are a range of different conversations that we're having in order to raise awareness of what we're doing and to engage with our publics. So these include general advertising, which we can control, and direct response, where we're getting sort of interaction from them, sales promotions, where we're reducing the price potentially, or we're getting stimulating action, and public relations, which I've mentioned in previous slides. And we need to make sure we've got a blend right. We need to, but before we do any of that, it's back to that sort of objective setting in our marketing strategy. What do we want to achieve? And from that, can we set some key performance indicators in terms of our expectations? So here we've got a marketing communications plan. Okay, so this will echo some of the marketing strategic frameworks that I've talked you through. So the first step is where we're at, our situation audit. So when it comes to communications, we're looking at how we're setting out our mission, so what we're saying we do. Then what are our internal objectives, our corporate objectives, which may be to enter a new marketplace. And from that, our marketing objectives might be to identify a new audience that will use our product and to stimulate a level of interest so that we get so many sales in such a period of time. Okay. That will then guide our marketing communication objectives. So we've got a new audience, we've got a new product, and we've got a sales target as well. So we know all this. So it means we know what sort of strategies we've got to identify, who are we going to go after. So in order to achieve that level of sales, what audiences could we do? We've mentioned a new audience, but maybe some of our existing audiences would be interested too. In that case, let's do a direct marketing campaign for them. So we've got some ideas. We're starting to get some ideas as to who we're trying to target. We know the volume that we're trying to go after. So then we've got to work out how we're going to do it, our tactics. Are we going to use public relations to go and increase the level of trust? Are we going to do some advertising to build awareness? Are we going to do some sales promotions to stimulate calls to action and actual sales to bring the money into the business? So we're considering all of those aspects, how we're going to do it. And then we've got control and evaluation. How are we going to monitor what we've done? So these are all considerations in a very natural plan that fits in a really good way. It fits and aligns to the marketing strategic frameworks like Maustick, APIC and SOSTAC, which I introduced in lecture 3. So when we're thinking about marketing communications, we need to understand the process that people go to before they'll engage with us. So let's have a look at AIDA. So AIDA starts off with awareness. So unless we know something exists, we're not going to be looking for it. So we have to put ourselves out there. Then we have to ensure that people are interested in it. So that's by our research on our target market. Have we got the benefits right? Are the communications pitched in the right way? Are they really focused for our target audience? And then we have their response. Do they have a desire to do something with it? Are we in a sort of position where they want to actually then act, which is ultimately the phase that we want them to go to with us? So we've got this funnel that we're going to with AIDA, which really looks at sort of trying to create these different levels of sort of interest, but not just interest and momentum as well. And what's quite interesting with AIDA is that you're unlikely to get a communication where you do all these things at once. Instead, you're going to be looking at using one of these, or your goal is going to achieve one of these through your communications. So if you've launched a new offering, the first thing might be to raise awareness. So actually, you spend quite a lot of money without expecting people to buy it at this stage, but it's about creating a level of sort of knowledge that it exists. So Tesla, when they first launched, or early on in their launch in the UK, they actually had in Solihull, which is near Birmingham, in their shopping centre Touchwood, they have a shop, like a retail outlet for Tesla, and it has a car in there, but they don't expect people to go in and buy it, but they are stimulating an awareness that Tesla is part of the market. And from that, they've got interest because people go in, find out a little bit more about it. But again, they're not expecting action at that stage. It's a long-term investment for quite a highly involved purchase. So it's to put Tesla on the UK automotive map. They then want to make sure, so we've got awareness because people have seen the shop, and actually I see the shop a few times, and then I'm curious, I'm interested, so I go in and I'm sort of like, so what is Tesla? Show me the car looks quite nice. Oh, but and you find out like, oh, it's rechargeable. So how does that work? Is there anywhere? So I'm starting to get interest, and then I've got a bit more desire because I'm thinking, well, it's going to be maybe a year or two, but I'm going to replace my car. I wonder, maybe I'll because I like what they're doing at Tesla. I like the idea of the electric car. I like the fact that it will reduce my running costs. I also like that it looks a certain way. So we've got this thing here where we're starting to build a level of desire, and you can see how this is done in a highly involved purchase. And by that, I mean one that's not just an easy one, that just a sort of disposable purchase, one that requires a lot of thought and processing. So I'm starting to move to desire there. And actually, what you might do if you do an advertising campaign based on desire, Marks and Spencer's Food do this a lot. What they do is they say it's not just Christmas cake. It's Marks and Spencer's Christmas cake. But the voice they use is quite sensual, so nothing like mine. The imagery they use is just gorgeous. It makes you want to eat it there and then. It's creating a sort of almost makes you drool. It's got this sort of very emotive response. And then action. This is where we're actually saying, buy your Marks and Spencer's Christmas cake now and you'll get a 20% discount, or you'll get some free mince pies. Or for Tesla, book your test drive now and we'll bring the car around to your house and you can see how it feels if it drives as well as it looks. Okay. So just have a consider. I think on this, it's worth thinking about. Unless you've got something that's a purchase that people are really familiar with, if they're really, really familiar with it, they know the brand, in that sort of case, your marketing communications are going to be towards action because it's already tried and tested, just buy now, buy now, buy now, or try. But if you're in a new position in the market, you're going to have to do more at the top end of AIDA, so the awareness and the interest. So in the different stages of AIDA, we're considering different things. We're considering what makes our product or service desirable. And this is where we might look at doing some market research, have some focus groups, listen to what our consumers are saying, what do they like about it, and that's what we promote. How do we make an emotional connection? How do we need a dialogue to make that sort of as a brand that people want to be friends with? Action. So if we're working towards action, what are we expecting people to do next? If it's Tesla, it's not going to be buy now, order your Tesla now. It's going to be book a test drive. And then from a book a test drive, once they've done that, then we'll follow up on, are they interested in buying one? But where do we put those calls to action? In Tesla, if we're thinking about the retailer in Solihull, the calls to action are going to be based on their salespeople. So they're going to be their personal, their sort of their actual people, the intelligence there. So they're not actually putting it on a marketing communication, but they might do. They might have a picture with so they might do a local mail shot around Touchwood, so around that shopping centre, encouraging people to go into the retailer to have a look, to talk to someone about a Tesla. And then from there, so they could do something that sort of gets people along the sales pipeline, because that way they're not feeling under the same pressure as a test drive. So with action, we need to think about what we're expecting people to do next and make it so easy. So how are they going to engage with us, and give them lots of options. So it might not just be now. If I want to donate to charity, if I'm looking at a campaign on the television or on the internet, it isn't just a case of like donate now. So I don't have to go outside my house to find somebody who's shaking something or put some money or to. All I've got to do is text whatever, and that will automatically take £5 from me if I've given that permission. So again, they've really thought through how easy it is, because they know if I'm watching an advert, it's just before Christmas, my family are all well and healthy, I'm looking at people that are starving, that don't have I'm emotionally like, oh, I'm so lucky. They need to get me to do it straight away, because if I put it on my list, by the time I get to my list, I'm like, well, actually, I haven't got that to give. They will do research on the amount that's the most they can get from somebody, but they're sort of that without creating a sense of, oh, should I or shan't I? So it might be £5 or £10, and they'll do a lot of research on that to make it as easy as possible. And they've got me at an emotionally peaked state, so I'm ready to act. And then retaining. And actually, this is beyond AIDA, but this is about acting on a sustained basis. What do we do to keep them? And I tell you what, marketing communications has a huge role to play in that. How do you create a relationship? And actually, how do you do that online and offline to ensure that your customers continue to do business with you? There has been research done on automotive, so cars, where people have gone out to buy a particular car, and actually very few come back with that car in mind. So they might want, they basically, throughout the process, something happens to dissuade them. And that's why the more we can do to build loyalty, the more we retain we make the most of that initial marketing budget once they're in the funnel, in terms of like a sales funnel. So another way of looking at our marketing communications and analysing them. So we've looked at AIDA, which I think is quite useful in terms of the purpose of the marketing communication. So now let's have a look at DRIP. So DRIP considers whether we are the role of our marketing communications and how it fits in with where we are in the sales channel. So differentiating, we're trying to show ourselves as different, okay? And we do that through everything, our price, our place, our promotion, the processes, the people. We really need that all to stack up. This is how we set ourselves apart from the competition. We need to do this early on when people don't know, and we need to do it sometimes. We need to change it when there's something else that happens in the market. So from our market analysis, where there's a trend where people want vegan products. So vegan products, well, as it happens, our product's always been vegan, but we've never marketed that. We've never considered it to be important enough. But now we differentiate ourselves by some communications that state we are vegan friendly. We've always have been, and that's part of our core values. Reinforcing is when people know it already. So they know it, and we're just reassuring them that actually we've always been rated the top brand for whatever. So you just say, oh yeah, of course, I'd forgotten that. So you're already, in that point, you're in people's consideration set. So they're thinking about using you, but you're trying to increase yourself to be not just one of the ones they consider, but top of their mind. Inform. This is where we're trying to give some additional information about what we do, how we're available, how we do it. So we're informing them. And then persuading is about getting them to act in a certain way. So this is like the call to action. This is the action part of AIDA. So it might be buying, it might be call for more information, it might be visit our website. So we're doing something extra. So they're pushing them along their line. So some examples here. Cravendale is a milk in the UK that's actually filtered, and so that's how they're different. And they do advertising campaigns with cows where they want their milk back because it's so amazing because it's Cravendale milk. Reinforcing, McCain do a lot of sort of oven chips, things like that. They reassure their customers about no additives. So actually, it's all about a very sincere brand. So it builds on the branding values as well. Inform, we'll have seen a lot of advertising at the moment about different taglines in terms of behaving around the pandemic and what we should be doing. But actually, we'll have also, when they're flood warnings, there are also adverts on UK television about things like there was one about if you fall in cold water, so and how you should behave, and that you should stop first of all, adjust, and then start trying to swim. So things like where they're trying to make people aware of behaving in a certain way. So informational messages, and then persuade is where we've got a strong call to action. Seal it, bang, bang, and the dirt is gone. So we've got a reinforcing message there. So we're trying to do an instructional message. Differentiate, another example, Fairy Liquid. Premium price, but the right reason why it's a premium price is it's a premium product. That's what they want us to think because it lasts 2 times longer, twice as long, in fact, as the next best-selling brand. So it's a much more superior product, hence the inflated price. Then we've got, in terms of reinforcing, we have Coca-Cola. And you see what I was saying about Coca-Cola's branding? They've got a very generic background, open a Coke, open happiness. We can't tell what country that person's from. They could even be male or female, we don't know. But the hero is Coca-Cola. So that strengthens this association with happiness and Coca-Cola because we already know Coke, so we know it's the brand. You know, what they're trying to say is the brand to go for. Inform, this is one where you've got to be really careful over your messages because if you're trying to tell people certain things, in the UK it's the Advertising Standards Authority, but they will check. And actually this advert got into trouble because it was deemed that whatever they said was inaccurate. So this is Dyson launching a new product that people haven't previously heard of. So they're trying to sort of give the benefits of this product. And then persuade, these tend to be quite emotive. So we're talking here about trying to get people to give up smoking, and we're explaining why in a very visually impacted and distressful advert as well. So I've already mentioned we've got different communication tools available, advertising with full control over. So it's non-personal and it promotes whatever we want because we're paying for it and it's scripted as long as we comply with whatever the legislation is where we're advertising. Personal selling, that was my example in Tesla in the store. These are these fabulous people that are going to talk to us about and ask us questions and build a rapport with us. Short-term promotion, these are generally price incentives, bundles even. So actually if you buy one, you get something else free. But they're ways to get an income because they're ways to say buy now and you get some incentives. So they shorten the sales process. Public relations lengthen the sales process, if you like, because they're all about building those relationships up and they're all about a long-term investment in a brand. And that can be a very effective way, but it's a long-term strategy, whereas personal sales promotion is a short-term strategy. And then direct marketing, if we've got a good customer base, excellent data we keep about them and a good connection and their permission, we therefore can create offers that are really meaningful to our customers. So we've got this sort of toolkit, if you like, available to us, and then we need to decide which ones to use and when. So just to summarise, advertising is fantastic in the sense of we get what we pay for. So we know exactly what it's going to look like, where it's going to appear, when it's going to appear. However, people don't tend to believe it. It's good for awareness, it's good for showing how we're different and potentially putting messages across. But actually, that's about it. So it has some impact in terms of, oh yes, I saw an advert for that recently. So we're aware, okay, but we need it to stick and we need it to resonate. Sales promotion, these are where we're discounting. We have a huge level of control over that, so it's fantastic. Depending on what we give away, it could be quite expensive. And people do believe them generally, and their primary purpose is to get sales in, to persuade people. Public relations is where we craft messages that we're putting out in the public. We're hoping they get picked up and used as we hope. And they've actually got quite a high level of trust. They help showing our brand as different, but they don't tend to be very sales focused. So actually, the benefits might be quite short in terms of immediate sales, but good long term in terms of building a rapport. Direct marketing, we can control very much. It's very focused, so it's not a scattergun. Advertising tends to be for everyone in a sort of who will consume it. Direct marketing is very much one to one. However, we can obviously automate it. It's very good at persuading them to do something because we've got some knowledge of them and it reinforces our brand message. And then personal selling depends on the individual, okay, as to how good they are. Very expensive because actually good people are expensive, but it's quite credible because it's a two-way communication process and actually is very targeted and can be very, very effective in getting in sales. But it tends to be with highly involved, high ticket items, so expensive items. For very inexpensive consumer mass market items, it tends not to be used. Got some other sorts of ways of how we consider communications. We've got here paid for, so POEM, another acronym. Paid for is where we are controlling it because we're actually paying exactly for it, so we can make sure it appears. So ties in with the advertising. So it's where we're paying for boosts in terms or AdWord campaigns, things like that. So not necessarily going to be very well believed, but at least we know that we're controlling they're going out for. Where they're going out and how they're going out. Owned, it's where we already own the facility. So on our own website, we can put on a promotion on there. Within our store, we can put up certain assets. We can on signage outside our stores. So it's very highly effective in terms of being very cost effective because we already own them and we've got an audience there that already like and know what we do. So that can be very effective. And then earned is where we generate something where we've got word of mouth. So we've got a buzz going about it and it's been conversed against. Or conversed around, and we're part of that discussion. So earned is something that's less controllable, but if it works, could be a lot more interesting and have very high volumes interested. So paid, as I mentioned, are major platforms where we're paying to control, whether we're paying someone to publish it or whether we're paying for additional promotion. So we can target in a very well thought way and we can look at people's behaviours in order, or Facebook will do that for us, or whichever channels we use. So we've got a good match with what people are looking for and what we're providing. Owned, cross-selling is really what we're doing here. We can understand our audience analytics, so we know that on our websites we can look at people who go to this page then tend to go to that page, so we can look at behaviour in terms of analysing behaviour. That can help us gain information in terms of all sorts of things, the experience they're having, contents that they're engaging with. We can also look at what competitive intelligence we're able to access through analytics. So owned can be very helpful if we're watching and observing and then looking at if we want to shift the behaviour or progress in a certain way. Owned and earned media are really good ways of sort of capturing data really, and then we can start targeting more and more, so we can look at improving our performance. We can look at customer service as well and their customer experience because we're mapping out their journeys better. We can really personalize content as well through the data analytics we've got and do more and more direct marketing and do it so it's really tailored to their need as and when they need it, we appear. The only thing is, I think it's just about being really conscious that there's a level of trust there, and if people feel that trust is abused, if you'll give me the content I want and when I need it and I've given you permission to, that's one thing. If I don't remember giving you permission, it might feel like something that you feel watched or observed by a brand and lose confidence in them. So in terms of paid for advertising, we've got broadcast, which is almost the traditional things, and actually the cost is reduced because people switch off and they go onto other channels, or they fast forward through the breaks because they're watching it on catch up, it's actually more and more cost effective now to do the broadcast television. Print is obviously something that's dying out a little bit, so again, it's more cost effective than it used to be, but potentially not the same customer base. Out of home, that all varies. So when people are out and about, things like street furniture, so in other words, like bus stop advertising, especially if it's a local offering, could be really, really effective to get out there if we're trying to direct people to a new store or make them aware, even of a new Subway store opening. Digital media, obviously, that's grown from strength to strength and can be highly targeted in terms of direct marketing messages. In-store is our owned media, isn't it? And then others, there's a real variety here of different ideas that you could look at. I mean, cinema advertising was still seen as a very effective way. It's very effective for local businesses, actually, like local garages, because it's one of the few places that people go to where actually they're fully absorbed in that experience because they're not supposed to use phones and things. So as long as they arrive early, it's a good way of early enough to see the adverts. You've got a captive audience there, and then we've got some other ideas there as well. Even things like advertising on roundabouts, sponsoring them, that can be a PR activity to show that you're interested in the local community. So there are a huge number of options we've got available when it comes to communication messages. Informational messages, this ties into before I was talking about educating people, Dyson's example. Emotional messages, so these, you tend to find that most, even the messages where they're trying to get people to stop smoking, there's an informational element, but really it's delivered in an emotional packaging with the fat through the arteries of the cigarette. User-generated content is obviously a way that's sort of moving on and on in terms of creating a dialogue and creating your fan base and creating a conversation rather than just pushing messages out. And then branded content is another option we've got of having educational pieces with our name within them. So what we need to do is make sure that all these messages are diffused over time through a variety of channels that are meaningful to our target customer. So we're still coming back to our target customers. So just to sort of recap and sum up really this customer journey in terms of our communications, they need to know about what we do, and we need to know about them. So this is where the target audience comes in, socioeconomically, what are they like, what's their personality like, and how do they interact with different medias, what sort of style do they like. So before we've even got that, we're driven by the agendas of why people need what we've got, how innovative we are, and sort of what we're able to say. So we've covered knowledge. We then need to persuade. So this is similar to AIDA, it's similar to the DRIP model, but we need to get people along that sales journey. So here we're working out how we're going to do that. So what we're offering them, and how far can we push them at an early stage? They're then going to make a decision. Are they going to try it? Are they going to reject it? So if they do try it, are they going to become loyal customers? Are they going to do it later? Are they going to stop doing it? And if they're going to reject it, is that ongoing, or might they try it at a different point? So, for example, I go in to the Tesla store, like it, doesn't persuade me at that point of time to try it. So I don't book a test drive. My decision at that stage is I'm going to reject it because I've got enough else going on. I'm moving home at the moment. I don't need a new car. However, that doesn't mean I'm going to continually reject it. It could mean that later on I'm going to adopt it, but I haven't decided yet. So at that stage, I'm going no further. And then confirmation is an interesting one, because actually, after we try a brand, what we need to do is make sure that people feel like they made the right decision. And there's something that comes in called cognitive dissonance. And cognitive dissonance is where people will try something, but then they wish they hadn't, or there's a mismatch. They then start doubting their decision. So we need to continue our communication process to confirm they've done the right thing, to give them a little stroke. Well done on buying this brand. Thank you very much. You've joined one of X thousand people that have also started to use it. And you're like, oh, okay, I've done the right thing here. So just bear in mind, communication does not end when people have made a decision. It should carry on beyond, especially if we want an ongoing relationship with them. So to summarise, marketing communications are about engaging our audience. This could be existing customers, this could be people who've only just heard of us, and actually it's all about differentiating, reinforcing, informing and persuading through a careful choice of different media and getting the mix right. And it's all got to be based on what our different target audiences want and need and the media that they use. And that then supports the organisation's objectives in terms of their marketing objectives. So just to conclude, so we've looked at quite a bit here. We've looked at the marketing mix and we're going back to the marketing mix now. We've really looked in communication theory to make sure that our promotions work and our promotions become communications. So what can we measure? Okay, when it comes to control, and what sort of analytics can we have? So when we're looking at the product, things that we can consider are how much of the market share has our company got? In terms of value and volume, how many sales are they getting? How many new products are we getting? What are our warranties like? So we've got a high level of defects. That could be very damaging. We need to do something about that. And then our repeat purchases. Is this a level that it could be, or could we work more on our promotions with our existing customers to get more repeat purchases? Our place. Are we distributing things in the most cost-effective way possible? How much does it cost to get them out on different routes? Is it worth not even selling direct to consumers? Should we just sell to our intermediaries and our wholesalers? Would we do better marketing just to them? So how many sales are we getting from each of our different channels? Is there growth? Is there decline? How long is it taking to get our products out? What levels of stock are we having to hold? We could potentially push that back to our suppliers on that. So we're looking at how effective we are. So are we doing the right things and how well are we doing them, how efficient we are? Strategically, are we achieving our strategic goals? And are we really making money? So not just sales, are we making profit? Because we could be doing really well on sales, but actually losing money as a whole, in which case maybe we need more cash cows in our business and less stars or less question marks that are costing us money. Our pricing, how much money are we making on each sale? Are we discounting much? Are we discounting more in certain markets than others? How much, what's the price for each of our target audiences, our segments, and how are we compared against other prices? Our promotion, how expensive our cost per contact is it for us to get to touch different people with our promotions? How much coverage are we getting? If we're doing a calling or we're doing something where we're reaching out in terms of direct marketing, what's the sales level for that? How much awareness is there of our brand? How many incoming inquiries or calls to action are we getting? So all of these are, there's so many more that we could do, but I think they're a really good starting point in terms of the sorts of questions, if we're running the marketing, the sorts of analytics that we want to make meaningful decisions about how we amend our strategy. So again, another comprehensive session today covering, starting off with segmenting, targeting, positioning, back to who those ideal customers are, and then creating a marketing mix, the price, the place, the product, the promotion, the processes, the people, and the physical evidence, making sure they're attractive to our target audience, and then going into some depth on marketing communications, the options we've got, the pros and cons, the different models we've got for effective communications, and then bringing it all together very nicely in terms of what can we measure, what analytics could we use around the marketing mix. So we've got some references as well. I'd like to thank you very much for watching, and I hope you'll join me in today's seminar.